Purposely. Your life, God's purpose. Listen at onpurposely.com.
Oh, this is in better hands. This is a better plan. This is in better hands than my own. I mean, even singing that was a prayer, truly. And I didn't have to make a big song out of it, honestly. But when we wrote it, I was like, oh my gosh, that's what I need to sing. That was the song I sang under my breath, for this album, probably the most, was that chorus.
His name is Pat Barrett, and welcome to the Passion Meets Purpose podcast. The whole point of this podcast is God gives each of us unique gifts and talents, and once we figure out, sometimes at an early age, what those are, it's like that sweet spot. You're in your lane.
Yeah.
And then we learn how to put that on display to give back to the world. Because you know that living a story for yourself is nowhere near as good as living the story that God would write. We celebrate that on the Passion Meets Purpose podcast. And for some people, it's playing basketball or writing books, or for you, it's writing songs. And a couple other things that I want to talk about. So first of all, welcome.
Hey, thank you.
And we've got your buddy Benjamin here as well. Hey, Benjamin.
Hi. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. I asked both Pat and Benjamin to keep their guitars close at hand. Because at any moment during this podcast, they could break out into song.
And just like in life, just like a musical,
yes.
A walking musical.
I feel like that's how life is meant to be lived.
Yeah, exactly.
And I think that's actually a good place to start, because even this morning you mentioned growing up as a pastor's kid, you framed all that you were learning, theology, God, all of it, through music.
Yeah. It was through music. It was also, I don't even think I knew it until I looked back on it, like how much faith and melody were fused together for me. And, the sound of faith to me wasn't necessarily someone preaching. It was the sound of people singing and singing something they believed or wanted to believe, and that sounds different to me, to my heart, honestly. So there was something about when I became interested in music and writing, there was this element of connection and communion with God that I just felt when I would sing those types of songs. And some of it is my upbringing, but some of it was like it was. I think it was a desire to continue, maybe after I'm out of my parents' care or something, like into my future. Like, wow, can I keep singing these songs? I think I can sing this anywhere. I don't think I have to be in the church to sing this. I think I could be in my car. I think I can, now I'm learning I can sing songs of faith, raising my kids, and have that impact my perspective. And yeah, I can't separate the two now. Anytime I write something, even if it's fun, there's this element of like, oh, I needed to sing that. And I've found that God He's not afraid of what we feel. Sometimes we are. He isn't. And even our disappointment and our, gosh, it sounds weird to say, but let's say someone has hurt you and you're angry. Even going to God and saying, I'm angry, all of a sudden anger isn't a point of shame. It's actually a doorway to communion, to experience God and the pain and the hurt. So, I don't know if even if I wasn't doing music like full time now, it's not going anywhere. Like if I became an accountant tomorrow, which I shouldn't, don't let me touch your taxes or a spreadsheet. Music would still be this part of my life that's like, okay, God, let's talk,
Mm-hmm. I was listening to your record. One of the songs that jumped out, you were mentioning writing like to process your feelings. I was listening to Better Hands.
Yes.
And I have a daughter that's getting ready to go to Kenya, and I can barely put into words what it's like as a mother to like let her get on that plane. Mm-hmm. And go to the other side of the world. And so when I was listening to that song and processing, it was helping me get those emotions to God, just like you said.
Right.
Take me through writing that song. Were you in a similar place? There must have been something you were trying to control.
All of it. Yeah. I hear the leading question and I feel the accusation.
And it's right.
It's true. It's true. I feel like that with most things. I'm like, oh, and you know, I don't even know it in the moment when my metaphorical hands of my life are trying to grasp and hold and control. I usually find out based on the anxiety I feel because of it. So I'm starting to lose sleep. I'm starting to have all this. I'm worried about, my wife does real estate. The real estate market's crazy. Those are like the practical things that impact our family. And so you feel all of a sudden, you're losing sleep. Your attitude is affected in ways that, and those are life is hard enough and difficult enough on its own. We don't have to make it more difficult. Even Jesus said that in this life you'll experience trouble, but take heart. Scriptures also say that, like in the Psalms, it talks about needless bruises. Like you don't have to cause the needless pain, which is our desire to control things that we never could. So I think about that a lot, like our phase of parenting even. Like we don't have a baby in the house anymore. My youngest is 6, and we're watching their friend group and their peer group and all these influences now that are coming in stronger. And there's going to come a time when they're not in our house. Like we want to give them a solid foundation. A lot of it, honestly, is the parenting aspect. Like, wow, God, I can't control them, really, at the end of the day. I can help model for them. And in all of it, I can tell when I'm not trusting you, God, with them by the way I'm parenting. And so that better hands thing, like how do you hold it? It's like, how are we to hold all this unknown? And I know that his hands have been far more capable for far longer than mine. So that's why I like, oh, this is in better hands. This is a better plan. This is in better hands than my own. I mean, even singing that was a prayer. Truly. And I didn't have to make a big song out of it, honestly. But when we wrote it, I was like, oh my gosh, that's what I need to sing. That was the song I sang under my breath, for this album, probably the most, was that chorus.
See, that's why we put the guitar in your hands. Let's do this with a couple other of your songs real quick.
Yeah.
You mentioned earlier this morning before you played Build My Life, that song is about the long game. I loved what you shared about the long game. Yeah. Life, I feel this a lot. Like there are things that I want from my life that God is comfortable taking his time with. In scriptures, we hear about finishing the race faithfully, which is, if you ask any runner, which I do not run. Do you run? Used to.
Okay,
Used
so
to
marathon is always like, well, I don't know if I'll ever be able to do it. I bet I could if I trained, but the pace of it is so important in the way that, the tendency to try to outrun God. Like you start with a lot of passion, but it's the way you finish that matters along the way. And even if, that song took forever to write. It took years. Like the chorus came at one time, the verse came at a different time, the bridge came at a different time in different even parts of the world. Like the chorus was written in Scotland with a pastor friend, and it felt like it mirrored the journey of life for me, where I'm learning that faithfulness and obedience is a miracle that's slow. And you want certain things to develop slowly. You want a fruit tree to develop slowly. I had a friend, this reminds me of a story, a friend that planted a peach tree, and it was like a sapling and it started to fruit early, and he was excited about it. But he woke up one morning and the branches had fallen off because the tree couldn't bear the weight of the fruit.
Wow.
And you're supposed to prune it. And we're always so concerned with the fruit, the result, the end thing, when when really in the word integrity, it's a structural word. It helps you bear the weight of what comes next. And I just think about that with build my life. I will build my life upon your love. It is a firm foundation. It's a building metaphor to me. Like I want a life that can weather the hardship. And, sometimes like no storm, no problem. The foundation really doesn't matter as much unless it's tested. That's why you can probably skate for years, unscathed on certain things. But the moment the wind picks up, I found it as an invitation to God to just reset my footing. Anytime life starts to shake, I feel the mercy of God just say, okay, let's look down. What are we standing on? Oh, I'm standing on my career right now. Mm. That's the thing that I'm finding most peace in. I'm standing on, whatever, popularity or I've worked really hard and I feel really knowledgeable about this thing. I'm standing on my own wisdom right now in this. And the moment that starts to shake, it's always an invitation to just reset your feet. So, and that's a long, I want to be 80 on a rocking chair with my wife, and just like, wow, he was right. The house can stand,
Benjamin, I'm going to bring you into the conversation.
Oh, here we go.
Well, you're here, but I hear there's a really beautiful story. You and Pat do more than just play music together. Your friendship runs a long time, but there's a beautiful story of something that he did for you that was monumental in your life.
Yeah. Honestly, he gave me his time. That was probably the biggest thing. This was several years ago. I was a different guy. And a mutual friend had been trying to get me to come to church for like almost 2 years. And I just wasn't interested in doing it. We were hanging out one night and he's like, hey, I got to go pick up a guitar from a friend of mine, ride with me. And it was Pat, and he picked up this guitar from Pat. And I was like, who's that guy? He's like, oh, it's my friend Pat. So he seemed pretty cool. And I got coerced into coming to this event by this same friend, and it happened to be like a church-based Christmas party, but I didn't know that that's what it was. And I just thought
gotcha.
It was like, some guys hanging out, and I end up in this conversation, and this guy's like, so what are you doing this weekend? I was like, man, it's actually the first weekend I'm in town in a long time. He's like, oh, you should come hang with us on Sunday. I was like, dude, I'm in. I was like, where? He's like, Grace Midtown, 8:00. It's like, I've just committed to going to this church. So Pat led worship. This Australian guy was preaching. I remember he preached his variation of the Beatitudes. And I remember him saying, blessed are those who made bad decisions last night. And I just started crying so hard I couldn't stop. And Pat would just, I don't know why he liked me. He didn't ask me to play guitar. He didn't ask if I played guitar. He just asked me if I want to go to brunch. And it was like so common, hey, let's go meet for brunch. And he never asked me to believe anything. He never asked me what I believed. He just spent time with me. And I feel like that just was happening. And one day I look back and realize, like, I think I believe what these guys believe. Like, faith had become believable to me, not because of what I was being taught, but because of what I was seeing and experiencing with people giving me their time. And it's like 12 years later, and we're still here.
How does that make you feel?
Like a mess. I feel like I just got like emotionally tricked. Well, no, when I look back, gosh.
I know he has tears in his eyes.
Well, like when I look back on that.
Mm.
Don't look at me.
I think sometimes I feel all this pressure. We all feel like pressure to especially when you grow up in church, like you feel pressure to like share, like, oh, I got to live in the world. Like, how do I share my faith? Like, it's a really beautiful question. But when Jesus talked about it, he just said, just be light. Someone said that he delivered a guy, and the guy says, I want to follow you. He goes, I just want you to go and tell go tell your town how good God's been to you. Like, I never felt like I was evangelizing. That's what's wild to me about what you just said. Like, I wasn't like, oh, I need to take Ben out to brunch to like, it didn't feel like that to me.
Or me.
Yeah, well, and I think it's I think that's important because I want. It's amazing what, to me, the testimony of something that happened when you weren't looking for some testimony or some story or some, thing. Like, it just helps me. Honestly, it blows me away, and I just love you. I'm glad you're my friend. I think you would have been my friend no matter what, but.
I mean, that's the thing that was real about it. Like, because I'm a pastor's kid too. We had different experiences from our pastor fathers, but I was just so skeptical of anything. I mean, I could smell your evangelism. I had to get tricked into going to this Christmas event.
I can smell your evangelism.
Oh yeah, a mile away. Like. Not gonna.
This
buy
ain't
it.
my first rodeo.
No.
You the first person to invite me to a Christmas party for
but it wasn't evangelism, and it's not the healthy that need the doctor; it's the sick. His point wasn't to. There was no end goal. The end goal was just building a relationship with me because he enjoyed being around me, or really like brunch.
I love brunch. Too.
I know
brunch
you love
can't
brunch.
deny
My
brunch.
Lord. But yeah, that was the thing. It impacted me so much because it was real.
Yeah.
And I just knew this guy actually believes what he believes, and I'm questioning now what I believe. And I think that's like when you really come into contact with truth, when you come into contact with not just an idea, but real faith that's not temperamental and isn't pushy and it doesn't have an agenda. And then you see what Scripture means when, like, the Holy Spirit will do this. You don't have to do this. You don't have to do anything. All you have to do is love and then watch. And I mean, it for sure changed my life. And I never made a commitment. I just kind of looked back and like, oh man, I'm not comfortable living how I did live. And I'm really excited about this new way I'm living. And I think I'm following Jesus now. I'm not sure. Still not sure. Here we are. Yeah. But I think he's going on.
I think he's that way.
Over here. Over here. Come find me. Remember that sermon you preached?
Goodness.
Yeah. Thanks for having me.
Yeah.
Oh, you guys. Thank you for sharing that. How long have you guys been playing together?
6 months after that.
Okay. Do you have a favorite song to play a little medley of together?
Ooh.
This is your guys' choice.
Greatest.
Well, Ben, but it's so great about. I mean, it's funny. You play music at a church years ago, over a decade ago, but then now, like this last record, when I recorded it, Ben's in the room with me, and we're recording these songs. It's not just like, oh, we play music sometimes. Like, we're playing together all the time. And then when you go from not just the songs done, let's play together, but part of the creating and I don't know. It felt different. So Shelter was my favorite one to play because it felt different to me. And we also did a tour with just Ben and I playing acoustic, just up there, just wailing away. Shelter, I need you. Shelter, hide me away from the harm, away from it all. Safe here in your loving arms. I need your shelter. That was my favorite from the recording. Still.
Same for you?
Mm-mm.
What's yours?
Oh, man. Hope's for you.
Oh, gosh. What key is that in?
I don't know.
Oh.
It's a toss-up between that and Seen Unloved.
Oh, don't ever let your love grow cold. Don't ever think that you're alone. There's someone looking out for you. Oh, I love that one too.
Yeah.
Oh, don't settle for the easy road. The hardest things will make you grow. Got so many hopes for you. Well, that was also one that was like, you're writing that thinking about your kids. It's like, gosh, that's what I hope for them. But then the problem was, when we went to go record it, I was like, I want this for my kids because I want it for me.
God,
I was a mess.
God, your beautiful heart, it makes you who you are.
God knows we need you. Yeah, I had to collect myself before that. I called, the guy wrote that with Hank Bentley in Nashville. I called him after that. I was like, Hank, the craziest thing just happened. I just got tricked by our own song. I thought we were writing something for somebody else, and I realized how much it's a prayer for me. So, no, I can't hear it the same way now.
I feel like I get to be an observer of your friendship and your good times and your stories, and it's just because it's the Pat and Benjamin show. We just have a couple minutes left together. Yeah. You mentioned you love brunch.
Love brunch.
We heard the story of brunch. Is that where someone could find you every Sunday?
Atlanta's a brunch city, so you can find me there on weekdays. It's Tuesdays, it's Wednesdays, especially Thursdays. And it's great because it takes care of both breakfast and lunch. Extra bacon, always 3 eggs.
6 bacons, usually.
Yeah, I double up sometimes.
If we're on tour, for sure Sunday brunch. Driver is coming. Everyone is coming to Sunday brunch.
We do pancake apps. Yeah.
Pancake apps. Because everybody sees the pancakes like, oh, I want the pancake. But
like, no, you don't. You want a piece of a pancake.
Yeah.
You guys.
So you order,
you're welcome.
You load up, I know, it changes
I order the protein, I do the eggs and the bacon.
But you want a little.
But I want a little taste.
You want a slice.
Pancake apps.
Pancake apps, yeah.
The title of this podcast.
Yeah.
Or this episode. Close us out with Good, Good Father. It's what you're most known for. I heard that someone else that wrote this with you, you both had different father experiences.
Yeah.
In fact, on his birth certificate, there's not a name listed for his
that's what he told me,
birth father. And yet he's writing a song about God, which, you know, as a good father, which is hard to wrap our minds around, independent of what kind of experience you had as a child. It's hard to wrap your mind around the goodness of God with what we see here on earth. Mm-hmm. And so talk to me a little bit about the impact you've seen come from that song, the stories you've heard.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. I actually don't even know where to start because my like visceral memory of even like the verses of that song are just the living room of my house. And it was something that the verses fell out and the bridge of it fell out in 10 minutes, just scribbled on a notebook, like in their entirety. And which always like kind of tells me like just because something can be articulated quickly, it probably meant there was a work going on inwardly for like a long years, you know. And what was fascinating to me was for me, it felt like an invitation to like clarity. I just become a dad. I was also feeling a lot of, you know, the weightiness of like, I'm going to invite my kids into the most important relationship that they'll ever have. And they're going to use me as their primary entry point to perspective. And, you know, that's the song that helped me take that to God. Like, it's not just I want to get this right. It's just like, I want to see you rightly. So I experience the freedom of that relationship so my kids can feel that too. And I want to model that for them. But when I'd play it places, someone would come up to me and say, you know, like I had a great present, loving example of a dad. Someone would come up and say, I've never met my dad, or I hate my dad. And with some of my favorite, like the stories that just rocked me the most were the people that said, I've had so much bitterness towards my dad, and I feel like I can take steps towards letting God in to help forgive. And that forgiveness part to me is always, it's there's so much power there, so much freedom, and it's simple, you know, like, you're a good, good father. It's who you are. It's who you are. It's who you are, and I'm loved by you. It's who I am. It's who I am. It's who I am. Like finding like the deepest, most foundational reference point to my existing being in how deeply loved, regardless of what I do, is liberating. No matter what your experience, your earthly experience is, and it's healing, and it's good news.